Today we're going to talk about the Paris Peace Conference and how it impacted Central Europe and the Middle East. The Paris Peace Conference was a series of meetings that was held to establish peace between countries after World War I. Our agenda today is the history that started it all, and the impact on Central Europe, the impact of the Middle East, any resentment it may have created, and then on to the conclusion and some exercises. World War I was a war that took place between 1914 and 1918. It was triggered by the assassination of Austrian Archduke Franz Ferdinand. This made all other countries nervous, and thus a war began between 13 countries. These countries consisted of Britain, Italy, Belgium, France, Russia, United States, Germany, Bulgaria, Austria-Hungary, Japan, Serbia, Montenegro, and Romania, though Austria-Hungary was the first country to declare war on Serbia. Though the war was an absolute bloodshed, there were many advancements that came from it and still help us today. Some of these advancements were blood banks, aircraft carriers, steel helmets, IQ tests, filmed propaganda, and guide dogs. The final events to end the war started with Bulgaria surrendering, following by the Austrian-Hungary Armistice Agreement. Then Kaiser Wilhelm II abdicated his German throne. Afterwards, Friedrich Ebert became Chancellor and ended the war after signing Germany's armistice. The Paris Peace Conference, held after World War I, created border changes primarily through the negotiation and signing of various peace treaties. These treaties redrew the maps of Europe and the Middle East, establishing new countries and altering the borders of existing ones. Goals of the peace treaty in Central Europe were to address the aftermath of the collapse of empires in Central Europe, especially Austro-Hungarian and German empires, establish new political boundaries leading to creation of new nation states like Czechoslovakia, Yugoslavia, and Poland, to form new countries that sought sovereignty and independence after years of imperial rule. There were of course some challenges that consisted of borders drawn arbitrarily, disregarding ethnic, linguistic, or cultural considerations, and ethnic minority groups found themselves within borders of newly formed states. Therefore, tensions and conflicts arose over issues of identity and repression. Impositions were placed regardless of consequences. These were imposed reparations payments, territorial losses, and military restrictions on defeated powers. This led to economic hardship and political instability in Central Europe. That created perceived unfairness of punitive measures which fueled resentment among populations. The impact on the Middle East was far worse. There were significant changes in political boundaries and government structures. The Ottoman Empire was dismantled, leading to establishment of mandates and division of the region under European colonial powers' control, and imposed mandates intended for eventual independence, but perpetuated colonial rule and exploitation. The new states that came from the Ottoman Empire were the Republic of Turkey, Yemen, Syria and Lebanon, Palestine, and Mesopotamia. The peace treaties created conflicting commitments to the Jewish and Arab populations in Palestine. This also caused a lot of resentment and conflict in the region. Nothing comes without consequence. Naturally, this resulted in creation of artificial states and division of ethnic and religious communities. The Sykes-Picot Agreement divided the region into zones of influence between Britain and France. There were disregarded aspirations of local populations that contributed to long-term instability. The peace treaties drafted during the Paris peace process created resentment in both Central Europe and the Middle East for several reasons. Firstly, the arbitrary redrawing of borders and imposition of punitive measures led to feelings of injustice and humiliation among the defeated powers. Secondly, the denial of self-determination and the perpetuation of colonial rule in the Middle East fueled nationalist sentiments and resistance movements. Thirdly, the economic hardships resulted from the treaties contributed to social unrest and political instability. Finally, the resolved territorial disputes and conflicting promises made in the treaties sowed the seeds of future conflicts and tensions. The Paris Peace Treaties, negotiated after World War I, aimed to reshape the political landscape of Europe and the Middle East, but they also sparked resentment in both regions. In Central Europe, the treaties addressed the collapse of empires by establishing new nation-states like Czechoslovakia and Yugoslavia, yet arbitrary border redrawings disregarded ethnic considerations, leading to tensions. Additionally, punitive measures imposed on Germany and Austria-Hungary, notably through the Treaty of Versailles, fueled economic hardship and nationalist movements, laying the groundwork for extremist ideologies like fascism. In the Middle East, the treaties dismantled the Ottoman Empire, creating mandates controlled by European powers. However, the arbitrary division of the region, such as the Sykes-Picot Agreement, ignored local aspirations, perpetuating colonial rule and sowing seeds of long-term instability. Moreover, the denial of self-determination and conflicting promises, like the Balfour Declaration regarding Palestine, fueled resentment and ongoing conflict. Overall, while the treaties aimed to establish peace, their arbitrary nature and imposition of punitive measures generated enduring grievances, shaping the political landscape of Central Europe and the Middle East for decades to come. Take a look at a map and see what states and territories you notice that were a direct result of the peace treaties. This timeline can help you visualize the major events that took place during this lesson. Let's go over the exercises. Please feel free to pause the lesson to look through the answers. When you're ready, press play, and the answer will be given. What was one of the primary goals of the Paris Peace Treaties in Central Europe? The answer is B. To address the aftermath of the collapse of empires. After World War I, countries involved in the war, mainly France and Britain, wanted to ensure that allies were created to prevent another war from taking place. Please pause this lesson to look over the questions and answer them to the best of your ability. Press play when you are ready to hear the answers. Question 1 was true. Question 2 was false. Question 3 was false. Question 4 was true. Question 5 and question 6 were both false. What changes occurred in the Middle East as a result of the Paris Peace Treaties? The answer to this question is B. Creation of mandates and division of the region under colonial powers' control. In theory, by allocating land to different states, it would be much harder for another world war to begin. Today you have learned about the Paris Peace Conference and about the impacts it had on Central Europe and the Middle East. If you would like to learn more, feel free to use the sources I have listed on this slide. Thanks for learning. Have a good day.